I think after this episode, we can all agree that warfare has officially changed for good in the Drifters series. Because with all these different Drifters constantly coming into the world, bringing mostly knowledge, but sometimes gadgets and weapons, it changes how warfare is done. And Nobunaga has realized this in this episode. Even with last week's episode with the Gatling gun, it showed that with, guns like this, you no longer need to have a large amount of people next to each other. You can space them out to where you can attack from critical points in many different angles. You no longer need to have side-by-side with shields and stuff. You could put, guns in different portions or different sections of the battlefield and take them down. Nobunaga realized this and how great guns were. But then, in this episode, he realizes how great the crystal ball is. Now, at first glance, okay, even majority of us were probably thinking about this, and we didn't really realize the importance of how great a crystal ball could be. Nobunaga, when he looks at the crystal ball, and he realizes he can talk to someone through it, he realizes how insane this technology is. It's pretty much a walkie-talkie, radio, or a phone. That's exactly what it is. And he realizes, whoa, this crystal ball, I can communicate with someone a distance away, have a conversation with them with no time lag. And what this means is that when the commander needs to give out commands to the different portions of his army, for instance, like the left army to the right army or the middle army, and sometimes maybe even very far off in the distance another army, he has to send out messengers. He has to send out messengers to kind of relay to the other commanders in these little portions of the army for they to understand what type of tactics the general is going to make. And so there could be a time lag between when all these messages finally reach the commanders, and it can be very difficult to kind of make all these tactics work at once if, there's a time lag between each individual commander, and usually someone's very far off in the distance. It could cause it to where the overall battle can be determined thanks to how the far off distant army, gets the information that they require from the actual commander of the army. And so with how time is done with messengers, it really can make it to where there's a lot of delays in certain plans, and it really comes down to how fast those messages can get back and forth without being really tampered with. And with this crystal ball, Nobunaga realized if he can have a bunch of these connected to different commanders, and he can command people and say, I need the left army to go right or whatever, flank the enemy to the right or something, or, spin around them, or I need the center army to hold back or retreat behind the left army, he can kind of talk to them all at once, relay this information for everybody understands what's going on, and there's no confusion at all amongst the, army. And that's what Nobunaga realized. He's like, holy shit, this information I can get from this, all this, how much warfare can change if I use this in a fight, it's absolutely ridiculous, because he no longer needs to worry about, maybe his messenger not going to his commander down on the field. He can actually just talk to his commander and say, do this, do that, and they can listen to him. So, Nobunaga realizing this about the crystal ball shows how good of a commander he is and how he really knows how warfare works and how certain things can really change the tide of the battle. I mean, even the stone walls, okay? It seems like such a simple technique, which I have seen constantly in other anime and manga, but when you really think about it, the stone wall, instead of just using it for defense, it can also be used to attack people, which, I mean, it's kind of obvious, stone walls can be used to attack someone, maybe, encase them in some way to where you can use attacks, but the way it's used in this series, it's like, holy shit, this changes how sieges are done, because with the stone wall making staircases, that is they could just walk up your wall. There's no ladders. They don't need any ladders. They don't need any siege towers. They could just go up the wall and walk up it thanks to the stone walls. And the only way to get rid of that would probably be explosions. So, overall, the way warfare is changing in the battlefield, it's completely different from what maybe Toyohisa's, used to, or even what Nobunaga's used to, and he realized how different it is. I mean, even explosives are being added into the battlefield. I mean, with arrows with explosives attached to them, just slinging them off and they explode, it's changing how, certain towers are, taken down as well. I mean, if you look at Kingdom, okay, and compare this episode, I just couldn't imagine if some of these things, these little elements of, let's say explosives, to stone walls, to, communication with a crystal orb was added in the Kingdom, which I don't want that stuff added, obviously. I'm just saying, if you really think about if commanders had access to these different types of technology in the past, if just one person did, I could imagine, or I couldn't even begin to imagine, how powerful they would be. It's like this, okay? Let's make a very good example. Let's say there's an army of 10,000 men, okay? And then the army that's on our side has 10,000 men. Or, let's go even lower, okay? Let's just say 100 men. Our army has 100 men. Their army has 10,000 men. The army of 100 men, our men, all are loaded with a bunch of guns. They have a bunch of Gatling guns to SMGs, just all sorts of different guns, okay? All the guns you could possibly imagine, even, rocket launchers. And so this army of 10,000 men that have shields, spears, cavalry, just the traditional stuff you would see in medieval, were to charge in after this army of 100 men, you would think the 10,000 would win. But then, you gotta think about how warfare has been changed, okay? With 100 men having this amount of explosive powered impact with their warfare, for instance the guns, they could wipe out probably 10,000 people if they have the ammunition. If they have the ammunition and they could reload right, they could probably wipe out 10,000 people. They just have to go guns blazing and just wipe out everything. If there's cavalry coming in, just shoot the horse. Just shoot the horse in the head, take out the person that falls off. Just GG right then and there. So Nobunaga realizing this shows his confidence as a commander. He's someone that's intelligent and knows how certain things added to this world can really change it for good. So another good character trait to his character was added in this week, something that we saw displayed, which it was already shown a little bit when it came to the Gatling gun, and somehow he's a gun fanatic, but when you see this, it just shows how intelligent he is. Now, talking about the other things, let's talk about Toyohisa. Toyohisa, I like his style. I really like how his, warrior code is displayed throughout this episode. He tells everybody in the castle to surrender. If you lay down your arms, you surrender, nobody will be hurt. But obviously, the commander, the man leading the army, or, in the fortress, will have to lay down his life. Because it's like this. The person leading the army, he has to take upon all the burdens of his men. All the sins of what his men have done, he takes upon himself, and he needs to disembowel himself. That's kind of what he needs to do. And Toyohisa says you need to disembowel yourself, an honorable suicide, because you're taking, responsibility for all the actions of your men. So it's like you are, dying for your men. You're cleansing them of their sins. And the man didn't realize this. He's like, wait, what the fuck? I don't want to die and all that. You said I just need to lay down my arms. But then Toyohisa's like, no. I mean, he just cuts his head off and kills him right then and there. But he still spares the men. The reason for this is because he let the commander take responsibility for all the actions of what the soldiers were doing, and he let the soldiers go. And so I like that type of code that Toyohisa has. He still upholds his end of the bargain. He does keep his word when he says, I'll let you go and I'll let you free and I'll let all the different men that lay down their arms go, but he still takes the commander's life. It only makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like the commander issuing the orders. He's like, do this, do that, kill these people, go this way. Once the commander is dead, it pretty much demoralizes the entire army, but on top of that, it makes it to where they're all free. They've all been kind of, no longer burdened by the sins they've done, thanks to the commander now being dead. So the way Toyohisa operates is very smart, but also something I truly respect. So next thing to get into, let's talk about the elves and the dwarfs. So the elves and the dwarfs in this episode, they kind of settle their dispute between each other. I mean, we already know kind of how the elves and dwarfs feel with each other. For instance, the elves kind of got abandoned by the dwarfs in the past, and, they didn't really like the dwarfs after that. They got fucked over by the dwarfs. The dwarfs said, like, fuck you, and then eventually the elves got destroyed, and then eventually the dwarfs got destroyed because they didn't decide to help. And from what we found out in this episode was, even long after the elves gave up, they surrendered, the dwarfs continued to fight. They continued to go after the humans that continued to try to enslave them. They fought to probably almost they were completely extinct, and they were finally enslaved and forced to work in mines. They were pretty much in a concentration camp. That's exactly what it was and how it was displayed in this episode. They were in a concentration camp which had no dignity for their rights at all. At the very least, some of the elves, they had a little bit of dignity, but the dwarfs, they had no dignity at all. They were getting starved, they were very frail, and had no food in their system at all, which shows just how much, labor they've been doing, but also the lack of food they've been receiving. And with this being said, the dwarfs are like, I don't care who you are, even if you're elves. Please save us. Please free us. We will still fight. And it shows that the dwarfs, they have not given up. They have not given up that spark of being able to fight back, but they still, at the very same time, they're willing to put aside their differences. They probably have realized the wrongs they've done in the past. They realized how they used to treat the elves. They realized they used to be kind of a little bit of an asshole to the elves, and they realized that they probably understand why they're like this, and they probably never expected the elves to save them thanks to what they did to the elves. And with the elves coming back, it's kind of like their bonds are growing closer. They're realizing that they need to set aside their differences before they can overcome this issue that currently faces them, enslavement by humans. So yeah, the dwarves accepting this and trying to help out and all that, and also saying like, please free us and we'll continue to fight, is a very good addition to the army and what Toyohisa and Nobunaga is trying to lead. Now, another little awesome detail I think was greatly added to this series was the fact that if you were to eat while you've been starved, it could actually kill you. It's something that not many people really know, but I mean, if you're at the point of starvation, where you've been starved, you're dying of hunger, and if you were to eat a big meal, like just, eat so much to where you're being a glutton, it could possibly kill you, because your stomach might get upset, and you could, if you do a lot of work afterwards, it could just straight up kill you. And that little detail that was added into this is something I truly appreciate. It's not something that really necessarily needed to be there, but just that, little detail being added into the episode, it makes you kind of enjoy the episode and how it tries to be a little bit realistic. Now, the last thing to talk about, let's talk about the Black King. So the Black King, once again, showcases that he's very different from the normal Ents. He's not someone that wants to eradicate the entire world. He doesn't want to burn everything to the ground. He actually wants to maintain the world, keep it healthy, and actually teach the creatures, the monsters that are under his banner, to learn how to farm, how to, use the land to benefit them. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live, and I love you all. Please be safe. Chibi out.